Patrick Alcoholic. It's good to be at this meeting. I want to thank Steve for inviting me down. It's every meeting's a good meeting, and what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I was raised in Massachusetts, Braintree, Massachusetts, and my father was a cop. I had 3 uncles that were cops, and it was like a big police family, you know. And I can remember the Christmas parties. Back then, the cops would get little bottles on their beats. They all walked beats, and Christmas time, they're handed these pretty bottles of liquor, and they take the bottles, and we'd have a big party, you know. And the adults would all get drunk, and then after all the adults were drunk, us kids would sneak up and steal some bottles, steal some beer, and that's where I learned how to drink at a young age. Of course, my dad used to bounce me on his knee and feed me beer and laugh, you know. And the first time I got drunk, I wandered out the back door of my uncle's house, and I fell in a snowbank, and I had a t-shirt on and jeans, and the snow was warm. You know, and anything that could make snow warm was my friend. You know, and you know, I had a friend for life, I thought, right there. And you know, my dad was tragically killed when I was 11 years old. He was run off the road and killed by a drunk driver they were chasing. And what happened was his coronary artery was crushed in his heart, and he died a year later. Us kids didn't know anything about it. I had a sister that was 12 and a brother that was 9, and my father died 1 year later. You know, they gave him a year to live, and he died a year later. And you know, I was pretty screwed up about it. You know, and we were a church-going family, and right then I had a falling out with God. You know, if there is a God, why would you take my dad? You know, and a couple Christmases before that, we were, as a family, went out to buy a Christmas tree, and I think he had a '53 Cadillac, and we had the Christmas tree in the back of the Cadillac, and there was my mom and dad and the 3 kids in the back, and a drunk driver had come across the center divider and head-on collision with us. My mother was 8 months pregnant and had a miscarriage right there, and we were young and bounced around the car, but the only thing I can really remember is that Christmas tree shot out the back of the car, and my father jumped out and pulled this guy out of his car through the window. And he was a big guy, too. And it was like a polar bear pulling a seal through the ice, and he just got on him and just started beating the snot out of him, you know. And so, you know, alcohol at an early age had an effect on our family. And as I got older, you know, my mother couldn't control us. She'd, you know, we'd do something stupid, and she'd come up and start smacking us and hurt her hands. And, you know, there was no discipline in the house. And we would drink on the weekends and do drugs, you know, whatever was going on at the time, you know, pot. And all that stuff was a felony then. So you really had to hide it. And my mom was going to New York on the weekends to see a boyfriend, and we would have a party for the whole weekend. And our house is the first house in Duxbury, Massachusetts to be served with a search warrant for drugs and narcotics. You know, and I was so proud of that that I actually got the search warrant and taped it to the inside of my locker in high school. You know? And this is how small the town was. I was at the community center at a dance and had gone in the bathroom to go to the bathroom, and I heard 2 police walk into the bathroom, and they were talking, and you know, I'm sitting in a stall, and I pulled my feet up so they couldn't see there was anyone there, and they were laying out the plans to bust my house the next night. That's, you know, it's like, that's how small this town is. And so you'd think I would like to, you know, we were going to have a party, and I invited people over to the party, but I kept warning everybody, we're going to get busted, so don't bring any drugs. And so we're having this party, all liquor. You know, we had some drugs in my mother's bedroom. In her bathrobe, my sister had stuck some in there, you know. And all of a sudden, we're like disappointed because there's no cops. And then all of a sudden, like 11:30, cars in the driveway, boom, boom, doors slamming, in the house, against the wall, on the floor. You know, they had a DEA guy there. They had matrons to search the women, and lots of cops. And they went through every book and in the library and everything. We had little joints hiding around the house like an Easter egg hunt. Only it was with oregano. We'd hide them here and there. And the cops would find one and run up to the DEA guy, and he'd say, oregano. And we started to get worried because they didn't search my mother's room yet. And my sister was sick in bed, and she got up and made believe she was going to throw up, and she took the pot in the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet. It was just a little bit, but back then you could go to jail for a long time for having a seed, you know. And yeah, the cops were out to get me after that because I made them look like fools, and I would get stopped wherever I went. I belonged to a judo club, and one of the guys in the club was one of the cops that didn't like me. And we would meet twice a week at that club, and I would get to fight this cop, and I would beat the shit out of him because he's kind of old and not very good. And I was up and coming, you know, and looking like I was going to go someplace in the judo world. And, you know, I would beat the snot out of him. And then he'd see me on the street, and he would pull me over and go through my car because, you know, he knew I had something, but they could never catch me. And yeah, it was a crazy way to go. The store merchants would sell me beer because they felt sorry for me because my dad died and I was running the family. So I could always get alcohol, you know. And at one point, a bar had burned down like about a half a mile from the house on the highway. And we went down there one night and pulled the plywood off, and the inside of the bar was all blackened, but all the bottles were good. The first thing we did, we got gunny sacks and we took all the beer, and we made like 2 or 3 trips back to the house, and we had a barn that my mom never went in, so we were hiding all the liquor in the barn. And we go back, and then we got all the bottles and filled the gunny sacks, and we spent all night just stealing the alcohol out of this bar. And then we drink on the weekends because, you know, during the week going to school and all that, you couldn't really get shit-faced. And every Friday and Saturday night, we'd pick a bottle and we'd crack it open and smell it. You didn't know what it was, but we would drink it if it was green, if it was whiskey. We drank everything that we got, you know, out of that bar. And you'd think that's an indication I might have a problem with alcohol, but, you know. Then we would walk on the highway, and we would look behind big trees, big rocks, under little bridges, because the older kids would have people buy them liquor, and they would stash it out in the woods and say, pick it up at this point. And we would steal their stashes, and we got liquor that way. And we also walk on the highways. We would pick up half-empty bottles and drink them. You know, and sometimes, if you've ever done this, sometimes it's not liquor in the bottle. You might be an alcoholic if you, for the first time, and you keep on doing that, you know. That was crazy. By the time I got old enough to drive, I was, you know, before I had a driver's license, I was charged with driving without a license, driving without insurance, leaving the scene of an accident after causing personal injury, leaving the scene after causing property damage, failing to stop for the cops. And if you don't have a license, what they do is take away your right to drive. And I was like 15. So when I became old enough to drive, I couldn't drive because I'd already screwed up pretty good. And finally got a license and got 2 DUIs when I was 18 years old. Pretty close together, but one of them was a .06 and one was a .08. It didn't take much liquor to get me drunk. My first one, I had lost control of my car coming down a hill, and I had a head-on collision with the chief of the fire department and his wife that were headed off to a party somewhere. And yeah, what a mess that was. He T-boned me and no one got hurt, but I beat that one in court because of the low breathalyzer. I always had money for a lawyer because I always worked, and I always had a set of go-to-court clothes, tie and nice, because the judge would read the charges and he'd look at you over the glasses, and if you looked like presentable sometime, maybe that had an influence, I don't know, but my second DUI was a .08, and I hyperventilated for a long time before I took the test, and I got away with that one too, and I'd been on probation my whole teenage life. The first time I got in trouble, me and some friends had broken into a cabin in the woods that was just a summer cabin, but it was wintertime. We kicked the door in and stole a few things, but when we left, we didn't close the door, and the squirrels had gone in there and chewed everything up, all the clothes and bedding and everything, and there was a huge fine to pay, and my thinking was, it's the squirrels' fault that we got in all that trouble. Probation, suspended sentence, off, then probation, suspended sentence. Up till I was 20 years old, I always wanted a Triumph Bonneville 650. And I was walking home from school one day, and across the field was a cop lived there, and he had a brand new Bonneville 650. And I looked at it, it wasn't locked and was on the kickstand. I took it off the kickstand and just pushed it home through the woods and through the field over to my house. And me and my good buddy were going to make a chopper out of it. And we managed to take it all apart, but that was as far as it got. And we got busted because he was selling parts, and a cop stopped a guy on a motorcycle that had one of his parts on it, and we beat that one too because me and my buddy were at our house up in the barn getting drunk, and somebody had come over, and the cops were at his house, and they grabbed the bike, and they were coming to my house next. And I already had a stolen motorcycle at my house, so I pushed that off the property and dumped it, and then they came to my house, and again they couldn't bust me because it wasn't on my property, and it was. Then we had a big old party after that. What did we do? We got drunk, and we weren't very popular. No one came to our party, so we had a lot of booze. So we got really shit-faced, me and my buddy George, and crawled into bed. He had a bunk bed. I crawled in the bottom. I'm just trying not to puke. He goes up on the top, and then he starts puking, blah blah blah, and it's all hitting the ground. And I finally grabbed the blanket and I rolled up to go to sleep, and he had puked all in the blanket, and I was too drunk to get up and take the blanket off. And in the morning, it's it's one thing if it's your own puke, but it's someone else's puke. You might be an alcoholic, So I was off probation for the last time. My mother got remarried. I was supporting the household up until I was 21. And I left and came to California because we had lived here once for a year, and I'd made my mind up this is where I was going to live. And I moved in with an uncle of mine in Hollywood. It didn't take long. He kicked me out. I had met a girl at a nightclub, moved in with her in Hollywood. Then she moved to Long Beach to go to a Long Beach State, an art program, and I moved with her, and then she kicked me out, and it didn't take too long. And I went south from there. and I ended up in Seal Beach. That's as far as I got. Fell in love with Clancy's and the Irisher. Met all my friends, got work through there, got a place to live through there, and I lived in my van for about 8 months. Recreation park, the key to the marina. I had showers under the pier in Seal Beach. I had it made. I had a full-time job. I'm living in a van, and I'm broke every Monday when it's time to go to work. And I was a maintenance machinist. I was making pretty damn good money at the time, but I would drink it all up. It was crazy, and I thought I was like normal. Found an apartment in Seal Beach. A drunk guy met in the bar. Said, "Yeah, I got a place for you." And it was down on Seal Way, and that was 76. I moved in down there, and series of unsuccessful relationships, and the last relationship I had before I quit drinking, girl was living with me and moved out. Because she couldn't handle being with a drunk. Sometimes I'd come home, sometimes I'd be crazy, and that allowed me to drink a whole lot more. So I could drink and drive a lot more than I was doing before. And I got 2 more DUIs right in a row. And the first one was on PCH, going back over the bridge to Seal Beach. Cops said, walk to the back of the vehicle. They were going to do a sobriety test, but that was my sobriety test. Walk to the back of the vehicle. So off to jail in Long Beach, and I got a weekend in jail, and a fine and restricted license and all that. And before I had paid that fine, I got another DUI in Lancaster within that same month, and I was looking at. The first judge sentenced me to 9 months in jail, and I just flashed over. 9 months. I hate jail, and then they suspended that sentence, providing I have no measurable amount of alcohol in my system, go to school 10, and do all the stuff I'm supposed to do. And I violated probation. I should have gone to jail for 9 months, but it wasn't picked up because it was separate counties, I guess. I don't know. I really skated on that one. Long Beach roughed me up. They took the handcuffs off, and that's all you need with me. Go ahead, take these handcuffs off. I'll show you. A whole basement full of cops. And I start wrestling with one, and then boom, they just all jump on you. And I couldn't move it. I'm looking at my reflection in this polished vinyl floor, and there's like a little pool of blood going out, and it's blocking my reflection. I'm like, oh. And the next day, they're giving me my stuff back, and they said, you don't have a driver's license anymore. I said, what do you mean? You refused to take the test. I said, well, I was drunk. Of course I was drunk. I admit it. But they said, too bad. So, that's when it started to change. I looked in a penny saver for a bicycle because back then, if you were caught driving on a suspended, you went to jail for 10 days. There was no pussyfooting around. You just went to jail. And my deal was, I'm going to avoid jail. I don't want to go to jail. So I didn't drive. I bought a Schwinn Varsity bicycle. I was a 2.5, 3-pack a day cigarette smoker. And I rode that thing about a half a mile. I had to get off it, and I was huffing and puffing. I'm saying, this ain't going to work, man. I can't do this. But I stuck with it. I ended up having to ride my bicycle to Long Beach City Jail on the weekends for 5 weekends. School 10 out in wherever it is out there on the 22. AA meetings, and work. I had to go to work, and I was working in Los Alamitos on a construction job. I was a union mason at the time, and something happened. I would get up, and I would, oh man, I got to ride that freaking bike. I'd have to get up at like 2 hours earlier than I usually did, But by the time I got to work, I was all happy and chipper, and hey, man, I feel good. I'm ready to go. And I found that night when I went to bed during that period, I had the same pack of cigarettes that I started with in the morning. And if you're smoking 2.5, 3 packs a day, that's a big change. And I realized that if I keep beating my lungs up, I can get off the cigarettes. And that was something I always wanted to do. So I decided to train for a triathlon. I couldn't swim for shit. I'm just barely learning how to ride a bike. And so I subscribed to Bicycling Magazine, and I took swimming lessons over here at that used to be the Olympic pool, and I'm going to be a triathlete. I was off alcohol for a while, but I had I developed this cocaine problem because. Well, you go to AA meetings and you listen, and I never said anything. I go sign my card. Don't look at me. Don't ask me to say anything. I never took a 30-day chip, 90, 60. No, I never took any chips except for until I got a 1-year birthday. But if you said something about drugs, they'd yell you, they'd shout. All these old timers would stand up. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. Get that drug shit out of here. So I guess it's okay to do drugs. Of course, I wasn't talking with anybody. I didn't have any friends in the program. No one to run the shit by. And occasionally people say, well, how long have you been without alcohol? I've got about 6 months. I'm doing a little cocaine, but, they'd give you that look like, keep coming back, So I would, at the craziest point, I was on my bicycle. I love to dance. I used to go out dancing all the time in the nightclubs. And I would get on that bicycle high on cocaine, ride over here to 2nd Street. I ride up and down 2nd Street. Huck Finn's was one place you could dance. There was some dance places along the way. And whenever the band went on a break, I'd get on my bicycle. I'd go somewhere else and dance. And if everybody was on a break here, I'd drive over to the Golden Sails on my bicycle in the middle of traffic, no lights, I'm sure, just because I had to dance,
Jacked out.
Yeah, jacked out, trying to swim, trying to ride a bike, And then I was gonna take a year chip, and some of the people in the program were like, "All right, yeah." And they're doing birthdays down Thursdays. I think it was a Saturday, 5 o'clock, and I'm having this moment, and they're going 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1 year. My friends are ready to clap. I'm waving them off. No. And then what's going on? I said, well, I've been doing cocaine for 9 months, and I don't think you're really sober if you're doing cocaine. And, so that's when my sobriety started, and that was January 1984. So I got a sponsor after a while because I didn't do anything other than white knuckle it, sit in a chair, not drink, not share, not do anything, not participate, And finally, after my probation was up and all that stuff, it was like I'm free to go. They gave me my driver's license back. First time I drove my old van, I pulled up to a red light. I looked left and right, and I went through the red light. Because I'm thinking I'm on my bicycle, And pulled in a left-hand turn lane, and the lights changed to let me make a left-hand turn. I mean, that was the coolest stuff after not driving for all that time, And so I got serious with the program. The first triathlon I did, I couldn't decide. I couldn't figure out if I should start in the front or the back. I couldn't swim for shit, but I thought I could in my head because my head tells me a lot of things that aren't true. So I decided to start in the front and run like hell down the beach and get in the water. Maybe I could get that first buoy, which was 100 yards out, and I got run over. I started panicking. And the lifeguards can't see you. There were 700 people, and that was back when everybody started at the same time. There were no heats. Everybody went in. So I tried to get out of it. I was swimming sideways to the people, and they were torpedoing me and hitting me and rolling me over and cussing and swearing and just pushing. Oh, man. But, I got to the parking lot. I thought it would be hard finding my bicycle in the parking lot, but there weren't that many bikes in there when I got there. So it was pretty easy, and I finished that triathlon, and I was real proud of myself. I went to a party on the boardwalk, and everybody's all, oh man, that's great. You have all the numbers, magic marking to your body. And I'm up at this party, and a friend of mine gives me a cigarette. I light it, and someone hands me a glass of champagne, and I pour the champagne in my mouth, but something happened, and I spit it out over the boardwalk down on people that are walking by. Like, what the fuck? And that's and that was a moment of clarity right there. Hey man, this is what got me in all that trouble. And hooked up with a sponsor, Hank the Wolfman. That's what this guy's name was. And he looked like a wolfman. He was big book thumping. He was in your face, hellfire, brimstone. And he helped me go through up to step 5. And he had about 7 years of sobriety, and he'd give me a lesson, go home and write. He says, I don't care if you sit there for an hour with the pen in your hand, and time it, 1 hour, no more than an hour, and start writing. If you don't write, sit there for that hour anyway. I eventually started writing. I would bring it to him, he'd read it, go over it, share some stuff with me, and that's how I got through the 4th step. And he drank. He drank, and he was dead within a year. And he tried to come back, and you look in his eyes, Hank, just come back, man. Just do what you were doing. And he just didn't have it. He couldn't do it. And that was the first time that I witnessed that so a lot of people don't come back. But he got me through the first part, and as far as the program went at that point with me, I kind of stalled on the steps. I didn't do much, and mostly AA dances and meetings. I met Steve back in '84, and we're palled around a little bit here and there, and I was just everything I did was with AA people. I started swimming a lot and working out a lot, and just staying busy. And I think working out's important if you're new, even if you're going to walk around the block, a brisk walk. I mean, with me, it's mental, spiritual, and physical. I have to work on my mental stuff. I have to come to meetings. I have to share. I have to listen to you share. Spiritual, I got back in touch with the God in my life. I took that same God back that I kicked out, when I was having all that family problems. And, he changed somehow. I changed, he changed. And, mental, spiritual, and physical. And it all works together, if... Now I know why the rats are on that wheel going and going and going and going. They get the benefit from the exercise too. So try it. I mean, if you don't do it, the endorphins kick in, and you can be high on drugs, and you don't have to raise your hand as a newcomer because it's a natural drug, and I was high on that for a long time. Got another sponsor, continued on with the steps. Met a girl in AA after about 4 years. I mean, they say no relationships for the first year. Well, I was not dating material, relationship material. And it took about 4 years. And I found once I seemed to be doing good, then, people would be attracted to me. And one girl I met got pregnant. And I think I was sober 5 years, and I was still selfish, self-centered, me. And she wanted to keep the baby, and I didn't. And, I left AA because I met her in AA. So it's your people's fault. I ain't ever darkening the door of an AA meeting again in my life. And I did the thing that was right as far as paying the money and doing all that stuff. And, my life was getting worse and worse and worse. So I was not drinking. I was, doing everything except not going to meetings. But I slid past that point where, you know what, I don't even want to live. So what's the point about drinking? I came real close to drinking, but I didn't. And it's, it's a miracle I didn't. And finally somebody came up and rescued me. It was Tom Martin. He was an iron worker down in Sunset Beach. Big guy, not many words, short vocabulary. I was putting a starter motor in my truck, and these big pair of boots walked up, and a 5-year chip hit the ground, and he said, "Get your ass back to meetings." Turned around and walked away. And he could connect with some people. He was, and he connected with me, and I went back to my first meeting, which was the men's stag on Friday night in Sunset Beach, 6 o'clock. That's my home group. And I walked in the door, and everybody stood up and started clapping because I came back. Because you know how it is. All of a sudden, you don't see people. Well, what happened to Pat? Oh, he's all pissed off. Is he drinking? Well, I don't know if he's drinking or not. So for a whole year, I didn't go, and then I walked back in, and I was welcomed back, and I didn't get good right away. It took a while to get that, peace of mind back, but I learned the value of meetings, and I'm an alcoholic. I either need alcohol or Alcoholics Anonymous, because without one of those, I'm screwed. So that kid, I told his mother, I said, well, as soon as he starts saying Dada, wants to know what Daddy is or who Daddy is, give me a call. And so, well, I'm a responsible dad, So she called me, and I met him, and we started a relationship. And he was type 1 diabetic, so I had to learn how to take care of a diabetic kid, and I learned how to love that kid. And then it became, I was mad. For every month I'd write that cashier's check, I'd be pissed for a whole month. Then the next one come, be pissed for a whole month. Then you're only pissed half the month. Then all of a sudden you're not pissed at all. And then one day I was going to work, and I was in a happy mood. I had a piece of equipment in the back of my truck. I had to stop at the bank, then the post office to mail this check off. And I start getting pissed off again, because that's my money, damn it. And which is really, it's her money and their money, not my money. But I took off at an intersection. That piece of equipment flew out of the back of my truck and busted up on the street. And I'm like, oh, shit. And somebody stopped and helped me throw it back in the truck. But I think that was God going smack, and and then after that, a short time, it's voluntary increases. It's never missing a child support payment. And I had another child out of wedlock that I got in touch with his mom and started making payments. And he came out to live with me in Seal Beach. In that apartment building I moved into, they tried to kick me out once because I wasn't paying the rent or something, I forget. Small detail. No sense of humor, right? The manager died from alcoholism, and I'd been sober a couple of years, and they asked me to take over as manager of this building. 14 units on the beach in Seal Beach. I said, yeah, I guess. I'd been there for 4 years. I used to party there. I mean, that was a big party place. Cops on a lot of weekends. And what I started to do is, as the party animals moved out, I would get people from the program and move them in. I was like stocking it like an AA fish pond. And it was great because you get one party animal in an apartment building, and the whole place turns into a noisy party place. And so finally got all the drinkers out, and it was like all AA people. And it was great, you know, and it was, everybody knew how everybody else was supposed to act, and so there weren't any problems, or not too many problems. But one day I came home, and in fact, the guy that started Marina Pacifica, what was his name? John Stewart. John Stewart with the I. Yeah. I rented him an apartment. Yeah, well, that's how I remember him. I rented him an apartment, and he wasn't a beach kind of guy. I mean, his drapes were always closed, and he had a place right on the water, on the ocean front. And I come home one day, and they're having a meeting in the patio. And I'm like, what the hell is this? You know? And I explained to him that this building, it's like the separation between church and state. You're welcome to be in AA and come here and live, but don't freaking turn this place into a AA club. We can't do that. You know, because there were a few people there that weren't in the program, and they weren't too happy about it. But anyway, I went through a bunch of the records in that place, and almost 100 people from the program were in and out of that place. You know, I have some really good memories. And I was able to help out a lot of people. Things like late on the rent, you know, well, no, when can you get the rent? You know, and if they got past a month or two, then I'd, you know, have to do something. But, you know, all good people. You know, it was a great experience. And things got better and better and better. And like I said, that one kid came to live with me, and put him through high school, gave him a stable place to live. He moved out to Hawaii, and we have a great relationship today. He has 2 kids. I have 2 grandkids from him. And, you know, it was, man, you know, and I did the steps. I did the 9th step especially, which was hard to do. I started out with the first step and went right to 12 when you know, it's 2-stepping. You know, I got sober. I wanted all my friends to get sober, so I tried to bring them down, you know, and they weren't having it. And one guy came to my house. He wanted to get sober. I says, okay, yeah, we'll leave for a meeting in a little bit. I'm waiting for my cocaine dealer to show up. So my dealer shows up, and my buddy gets up and he goes, what the hell's this shit? And he left. He didn't want my brand of sobriety. And then I started 3-stepping. 1, 2, 3. Look at that 4th step. Back to 1. I wouldn't have wanted nothing to do with that 4th step. You know, and finally you got to get busy and do this thing. And I did, and I took all those skeletons out of the closet. I made all those amends that I could remember, you know, and cleaned the slate. You know, and I shared all that with another human being and with my God. You know, and I have a God in my life today. I pray in the morning, I pray at night, and mostly they're prayers of gratitude, because I shouldn't be here. You know, another moment of reckoning in Seal Beach, a moment of clarity. Early sobriety, people from the bar were like quizzing me, what's it like being sober? I'm like, man, it's real boring, I'll tell you. And one guy up on the berm was talking to me, and he goes, remember Ellen, her brother had stabbed you? And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean? He says, you know, Ellen, her brother had stabbed you. Well, I was thinking of this other guy that had stabbed me. And this is Seal Beach, where a big crime is stealing a bicycle. People were stabbing me and trying to kill me. That's what kind of mouth I had, and that's when it clicked that, you know, I need to be sober and stay sober, you know. And yeah, what a life now. And then boy meets girl on AA campus. I met a girl on AA campus about 5 years ago or so, and we got married, and that's my wife, Kathy. And, yeah, 62 years old, never been married, right? And then I get married. I used to say, no tattoos, never been married. I'm not in a commitment. But, you know, I've grown up in this program, and beautiful women used to scare the hell out of me. I couldn't talk to them, but with the program and the steps and good sponsorship, I can, meet a beautiful woman and get married. And we have a great life. She has a great program. We pray together in the morning. We pray together at night. And, same thing. We have the program in common, and we're learning as we go. And, we remind each other of the program and different readings. But one thing I'll advise not to use is when they're upset at you, don't come back with, honey, when you're upset, there's something wrong with you. Fire, gasoline. But, there's something wrong with me, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm in AA. But, this has been the best life I've ever had. The only place I could talk in front of a room full of people was at the bar, and only after I had enough beers, And all the years of being healthy in AA, when I turned 60, I'd been doing triathlons for 30 years. When I turned 60, I entered the Seal Beach Triathlon, which I had done the first Seal Beach Triathlon. I took first place in my age group. 30 years. Finally get there, and I think I got a T-shirt or something. But I felt so good, man. I was like on top of the world for a long time. And we bike ride, we walk, we do a lot of things. And I've done a lot of swimming down here in Alamedas Bay. It's a great place to swim. I used to do that Naples Island swim every year, and that was a good way to kick off the summer. Just being around a bunch of healthy people, that aren't partying. It's, you guys are my people. You're my family. You're my nighttime friends. I have friends that, from the morning and the daytime friends, but I wouldn't hang around with them at night because they drink, and who knows, I had a lot of basic rules in AA. One of them was, I don't date women that drink more than I do. So that kept me in the program. And these people that put AA women down are like, oh, the odds are good, but the goods are odd. They're full of shit. That's a bunch of shit. A bunch of hooey. There's a bunch of beautiful women in AA. And the men, yeah, they're all right too, I guess. I don't know. Does anybody bring a dog? Are there any pets? Yeah, it's these clothes, like I always had a set of go to court clothes, and then then you say, well, it's go to funeral clothes, and then I haven't spoken that many times in AA, but when I do, I wear the go to court clothes because I have a huge amount of respect for AA and anybody that walks through this door to try to get this thing. I have a huge amount of respect for you. The people sent here on court cards. I came here on a court card. I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I spent my whole life denying I'm an alcoholic. And I made sure that I didn't drink before noon most of the time. I didn't drink hard stuff. I didn't drink if I had to go to work next day. I had all these reasons why I wasn't an alcoholic. But, when I was in Thursdays that first time, I said, Patrick, alcoholic, the hair stood up on the back of my neck because it was something I've been avoiding my whole life. And, I'm an alcoholic not because of what I drank, when I drank, how much I drank. It's what happens to me when I drink. When I drink, it's like a bottle rocket, and I take off, and whose roof I land on and catch on fire, it's anybody's guess. I can wake up, and good things happen, or I can wake up in jail, and all the buttons are gone on your shirt, your glasses are missing, and you don't know why you're there. And I've been there too many times, and I don't know what to say. I got, it's, when I first start sharing, I didn't know how I could fill up 5 minutes. But, now after being in the program this long, you could probably do like a filibuster in Congress and just talk. I'd love to keep on talking, but I just got the 1 minute thing, and that was about 40 seconds ago, so I got about 15. No, I'm done, thanks.